Have you ever noticed how no matter how much you grow, no matter how much you change, someone still tries to pull you back to who you used to be? You correct your mistakes, you mature, you build discipline, yet they keep saying, "But remember when you..." That feeling that rises inside you isn't guilt. It isn't shame. It's the quiet frustration of being trapped by a past you no longer live in. Here's the hard truth most people never say out loud. When someone keeps bringing up your past, it's rarely about accountability. It's about control. They cannot dominate who you are today, so they attempt to define you by who you were yesterday. Stoic philosophy understood this centuries ago. The past is a fact, but it is not a chain unless you allow others to wrap it around you. In this video, you'll learn why people weaponize your past, how that control works psychologically, and how a Stoic breaks free without arguing, explaining, or losing inner peace. Stay with me. This will change how you see yourself and them. 1. Why your past is their favorite weapon. When someone keeps bringing up your past, it's easy to assume they're trying to keep you honest or remind you of who you were. But that explanation is too generous. The truth is harsher and far more revealing. Your past is their favorite weapon because it is fixed. It cannot defend itself. It cannot evolve. And most importantly, it allows them to speak with certainty while avoiding the present, where you are no longer easy to dominate. Think about it. When they point to your past, they are choosing the one version of you that cannot contradict them. They don't have to engage with who you are today, your discipline, your growth, your boundaries. They stay anchored to an outdated image where they felt superior, safer, or more in control. This isn't memory, this is strategy. The past becomes a tool because it shifts the balance of power. It forces you into defense mode. The moment you hear, "You've always been like this," or "After what you did back then," something tightens inside you. Your body reacts. Your mind starts searching for explanations. You feel the urge to clarify, justify, prove that you are no longer that person. And that reaction is exactly what they want. By dragging up your past, they quietly move you from presence to position. You stop standing in who you are now and start arguing for permission to be seen differently. In that moment, control changes hands. From a Stoic perspective, this is deeply irrational, yet extremely common. Most people are uncomfortable with change, especially when that change disrupts the roles they assigned others. If you were once reckless, weak, dependent, or chaotic, that version of you made sense to them. It placed them above you, or at least safely separate. Your growth breaks that structure. So instead of adjusting their perception, they try to freeze you in time. They repeat the past because it keeps the hierarchy intact. It keeps you explainable, predictable, smaller. Notice how rarely people who genuinely respect you do this. Those who see your effort don't need to revisit old failures. They respond to consistency, not history. But those threatened by your progress cling to old narratives because narratives are easier to control than reality. There's another layer most people miss. When someone uses your past against you, they're also avoiding their own reflection. Your growth highlights their stagnation. Your discipline exposes their excuses. By dragging you backward, they don't have to look forward at themselves. Stoicism draws a clear line here. Responsibility does not mean lifelong self-punishment. You are accountable for correcting your actions, not for permanently wearing your worst moment as an identity. The past is factual, yes, but it is not authoritative. When someone insists on defining you by it, they reveal something important, not about you, but about their need to dominate the narrative. And once you see that, the weapon begins to lose its power. 2. The control game. You're not supposed to notice. When people bring up your past, it often feels personal, emotional, even chaotic. But beneath the surface is a deliberate pattern. This is not random behavior. It's a control game, and most people never realize they're playing it. Control doesn't always look aggressive. Sometimes it looks calm, familiar, even concerned. By referencing your past, they quietly place themselves in the role of judge while pushing you into the role of defendant. They're not asking who you are now. They're reminding you of who they believe you should remain. The moment you start explaining, the game is already working. From a power perspective, the person who explains is not leading. They are reacting. They are trying to regain standing inside a frame someone else created. When they say, "After everything you did back then," they're not opening a conversation. They're setting up a courtroom. And in that courtroom, evidence never expires. Every explanation you offer becomes another thread they can pull later, another detail to twist, another reminder that you once stood beneath their judgment. This is why no amount of clarification ever feels enough. The goal was never understanding. The goal was leverage. Stoicism recognizes this pattern clearly. Control is rarely taken by force. It is often surrendered through emotional reaction. The more you try to correct their perception, the more authority you grant them to define you across time. That is the trap. Notice how this dynamic thrives on repetition. The same stories, the same mistakes, the same labels. Repetition isn't about memory, it's about reinforcement. Each reminder pushes you back into an identity that is easier for them to manage, easier to predict, easier to dismiss. This is why the past is so effective. It cannot defend itself, and it allows them to speak with certainty. The present requires engagement. The present demands they respond to who you actually are. That is far more uncomfortable, so they stay in the past where they feel safe. The Stoic response begins with recognition. You must see that this is not a moral discussion, it is a positional one. Once you understand that, your behavior changes. You stop debating facts and start observing patterns. Ask yourself one quiet question. Does this conversation move forward, or does it always pull me backward? If it pulls you backward, it is not dialogue, it is dominance. Control collapses when there is nothing to push against. When you stop defending, justifying, and reacting emotionally, the game loses momentum, not because you won, but because you refuse to play. Stoicism teaches that dignity is preserved not by convincing others, but by remaining anchored in the present. When you stand firmly in who you are now, the past loses its grip. And that is exactly what they fear most. This is why awareness matters more than confrontation. You don't need to expose their tactic out loud, you only need to withdraw your participation. When control no longer produces a reaction, it withers. Calm presence becomes the boundary they can no longer cross. Again, 3. Why they don't care that you've changed. One of the most painful realizations you can come to is this. Some people genuinely do not care that you've changed, not because they don't see it, but because your growth threatens something they depend on. Change disrupts comfort, and for certain people, your old version was comfortable. It fit neatly into a story where they knew who you were, how to treat you, and where they stood in relation to you. When you grow, that story collapses, so they resist it. From the outside, it looks irrational. You've apologized, you've taken responsibility, you've corrected your behavior, you show up differently now. Logically, that should be enough, but logic is not what's driving their reaction. Control is. Your change removes leverage. When you were insecure, reactive, or uncertain, they had access to you. They could provoke guilt, trigger explanations, or pull you back into familiar dynamics. Growth closes those doors, and when access disappears, insecurity often turns hostile. This is why reminders of your past tend to surface right when you set boundaries. The moment you say no, The moment you stop over-explaining, the moment you choose distance or self-respect, they reach backward. They bring up who you were as proof that you are not allowed to stand where you are now. It's not about truth, it's about authority. Stoicism teaches that many people relate to others not as individuals, but as roles. You were assigned one. Maybe you were the difficult one, the irresponsible one, or the one who always messed up. As long as you stayed in that role, the structure made sense. When you outgrow it, they feel destabilized, and instead of adjusting their understanding, they try to force you back into position. The past becomes a tool of emotional gravity, pulling you toward an identity that no longer belongs to you. There is also a deeper layer that is uncomfortable to admit. Your improvement often reflects something they've avoided in themselves. Your discipline highlights their inconsistency. Your self-control exposes their excuses. Your clarity shines a light on their stagnation, so they attack the timeline. By anchoring you to who you were, they protect themselves from facing who they are not. It allows them to say, "You're no better," instead of asking, "Why haven't I grown?" This is not always conscious. In fact, it often isn't, but it is consistent. Stoicism does not ask you to resent this behavior. It asks you to understand it without internalizing it. Other people's resistance to your growth is not evidence of your failure. It is evidence of misalignment. You are not required to convince them. Growth does not need witnesses. It needs integrity. When you stop needing their recognition, their grip weakens. When you no longer seek permission to be different, their references to the past lose urgency. They can repeat the story, but it no longer defines the outcome. The Stoic remains grounded in present action, not past labels. You are measured by what you choose today, not by what someone else refuses to release. And when you truly accept that, their indifference to your change stops feeling personal. It becomes irrelevant. 4. Why defending yourself only makes the control stronger. When your past is used against you, the instinct to defend yourself feels natural. You want to explain. You want to correct the record. You want them to finally understand that you are not that person anymore. But this instinct, as reasonable as it feels, quietly strengthens the very control you are trying to escape. The moment you defend yourself, you accept the frame they created. You step into a role where you are no longer standing as who you are today, but arguing about who you used to be. The conversation shifts from the present to a trial of your character, and trials have no finish line. There is always another detail to challenge, another memory to resurrect, another doubt to raise. This is why defending yourself never seems to work. From a Stoic perspective, this is a critical error of misplaced effort. You are trying to control something that is not yours to control, another person's interpretation. The Stoics were clear about this distinction. You govern your actions, your values, your responses. You do not govern how others choose to see you. When you defend yourself emotionally, you signal that their judgment has authority over your identity. You reveal that their version of your past still has access to your inner world. And once they sense that access, they use it again. Defensiveness feeds repetition. Each explanation becomes proof that the tactic works. They learn exactly which memories trigger you, which accusations destabilize you, and which words pull you into reaction. Over time, the pattern becomes predictable. You grow calmer, stronger, more composed in life, but one sentence from them pulls you back into the same emotional posture. This is not coincidence, it is conditioning. Stoicism does not advise you to suppress emotion or pretend the past never happened. It teaches you to stop offering energy to narratives that do not serve your present character. Silence in this context is not weakness, it is strategic withdrawal. There is a powerful difference between ignoring the past and refusing to debate it. When you refuse to debate, You are not denying responsibility. You are denying access. You are saying without words that your growth does not require their approval and your identity does not depend on their memory. This unsettles people who rely on control. They are accustomed to reactions, anger, guilt, explanations, remorse. When those reactions disappear, the dynamic shifts. They can no longer anchor you to the past because you are no longer emotionally standing there. The Stoic response is simple but demanding. You acknowledge internally what is true. You correct what needs correction in your behavior, and then you move forward without repeatedly reopening old wounds for someone else's comfort. You do not argue with the past. You outgrow it. Defending yourself keeps you tied to what was. Presence dissolves the grip. When your actions today are consistent, calm, and disciplined, no explanation is required. Over time, reality speaks louder than any memory they cling to. And if they continue to drag you backward despite that consistency, their persistence reveals the truth. The issue was never your past. It was their need to keep you small. Once you see that, defense becomes unnecessary. 5. What Stoicism says about identity and the past. Stoicism begins with a radical idea most people never fully accept. You are not your history. You are the sum of your judgments, your choices, and your actions in the present moment. Everything else is secondary. The past in Stoic philosophy is not denied. It is acknowledged, then released. What happened, happened, but it does not own you unless you continue to carry it as an identity. And this is where most people get trapped. They confuse responsibility with permanent self-definition. A Stoic takes responsibility seriously. If you caused harm, you correct it. If you made mistakes, you learn from them. If you fall short of your values, you realign your actions. But once that work is done, the past no longer holds moral authority over who you are becoming. The Stoics understood something modern culture often ignores. Clinging to past failure is not humility, it is inertia. Identity in Stoicism is not a story you repeat. It is a practice you live. You are not what you once did under different conditions, different awareness, and different discipline. You are what you choose to do now, consistently, when no one is forcing you. This is why Stoic thinkers placed such emphasis on character over reputation. Reputation lives in other people's memories. Character lives in your daily behavior. One exists outside your control. The other is entirely yours. When someone insists on defining you by your past, they are asking you to live inside their memory instead of your values. They want your identity to remain static because static identities are easy to manage. A moving identity, a person who changes, grows, and self-corrects, is harder to categorize and harder to control. Stoicism refuses that trap. It teaches that the only version of you that matters is the one expressed through disciplined action today. This is not self-forgiveness as an emotional exercise. It is self-respect as a behavioral standard. You do not erase the past, you transcend it. There is a reason Stoics did not encourage endless self-reproach. Excessive fixation on past error weakens the mind. It distracts from what truly matters. Right action in the present. Regret, when prolonged, becomes indulgent. It feels serious, but it produces nothing. The Stoic does not live in regret. He lives in correction. This is why accusations rooted in the past lose their force when you are aligned with your principles. They may be factually true, but they are no longer relevant. A fact without present meaning cannot command your attention. Stoicism offers a quiet but unshakable position. I am responsible for my conduct today. Nothing else defines me. When you internalize this, something shifts. You stop trying to rewrite history. You stop needing others to update their perception. You stop arguing with ghosts. Your identity becomes grounded, not defended. And from that ground, no one can pull you backward unless you choose to follow. 6. the Stoic response that ends the control. Once you understand the game, the question becomes simple but difficult. How do you respond without feeding the control? Stoicism offers an answer that is quiet, disciplined, and deeply effective. Not because it dominates the other person, but because it removes the conditions that allow domination to exist. The Stoic response is not confrontation. It is containment. Control depends on access, emotional access, narrative access, reaction access. When someone brings up your past, they are testing whether they still have a key to your inner state. If they do, they use it. If they don't, the door stays closed. The first Stoic move is emotional neutrality. This does not mean numbness. It means refusing to let the conversation dictate your internal posture. No visible irritation, no defensive tone, no urgency to explain. Emotion is the signal that tells them the past still works. When emotion disappears, leverage collapses. The second move is non-engagement with the narrative. You do not correct details. You do not relitigate context. You do not walk through timelines. Every explanation pulls you back into a frame where the past defines the present. The Stoic understands that clarity does not come from repetition, it comes from consistency. Short, grounded responses are enough. That was in the past. I've moved on. I'm focused on who I am now. These are not arguments. They are boundaries. They do not invite debate. They end it. The third move is anchoring to the present. You speak from who you are today, not who you were. The power here is subtle. You are not denying the past. You are refusing to center it. When you calmly redirect to present behavior, you remove their ability to keep you frozen in time. What makes this response difficult is that it feels incomplete. It does not satisfy the emotional urge to be understood. But Stoicism teaches that being understood by everyone is not a requirement for living well. Self-respect does not come from explanation. It comes from alignment. This approach often produces an unexpected reaction. When the control stops working, people escalate. They repeat the story louder. They add emotion. They provoke. This is not proof that you are wrong. It is proof that the old method has stopped producing results. The Stoic does not escalate in return. He stays steady. Consistency ends the pattern. Not a single response, but repeated calm refusal to engage. Over time, the person either adapts or distances themselves. Both outcomes restore your autonomy. There is also a deeper shift happening internally. When you stop defending yourself, you stop rehearsing the past. Your energy returns to the present. Your mind grows quieter. You are no longer carrying arguments that never reach an end. This is how control truly dissolves. Not through victory, but through irrelevance. Stoicism does not promise that people will stop talking. It promises that their words will no longer move you. When you withdraw emotional fuel, the fire burns itself out. And in that quiet, you regain something far more valuable than approval: sovereignty over your inner life. 7. When distance becomes the only Stoic choice, there comes a point where understanding is no longer enough. You see the pattern, you recognize the control, you respond calmly, yet the behavior continues. When someone repeatedly drags your past into the present, despite your consistency and restraint, Stoicism offers a final, uncomfortable truth. Distance may be the only remaining form of self-respect. Distance is not punishment. It is not revenge. It is not an emotional outburst disguised as silence. Distance is a boundary enforced through action, not explanation. Stoics believed your time and attention are among your most valuable resources. To give them repeatedly to someone who uses them to undermine your growth is not compassion. It is negligence toward yourself. When a person refuses to meet you in the present, you cannot drag them there. and you are not obligated to keep returning to a place that diminishes you simply because it is familiar. Distance begins internally before it becomes external. It starts when you stop sharing details with someone who weaponizes them, when you stop offering access to your inner process, when you stop seeking understanding from a source that has proven unreliable. This internal withdrawal often happens quietly, long before any visible change in behavior. Externally, distance may look subtle: fewer conversations, shorter responses, less emotional depth. You do not announce it, you do not justify it, you simply reallocate your energy. Stoicism teaches that not everyone deserves proximity. Proximity is earned through respect, not history. Blood, time, or shared memories do not entitle someone to continual access to your present self if they refuse to treat it with dignity. This is one of the hardest lessons to accept. Many people stay trapped because they confuse endurance with virtue. They believe tolerating emotional harm is a sign of strength. Stoicism rejects that idea. Strength is not measured by how much you can endure, but by how wisely you choose what to endure. Distance becomes necessary when a relationship repeatedly violates your inner order. You do not need to label the other person. You do not need to convince anyone else of your reasons. Stoicism is not about winning social arguments. It is about preserving inner stability. When you step back without hostility, something revealing often happens. Either the person adjusts, realizing their old leverage no longer works, or they fade away, having lost interest once control disappears. Both outcomes clarify the truth of the relationship. Distance also creates space for something better. Relationships rooted in the present, not the past. Connections that respond to who you are becoming, not who you were at your weakest. Stoicism is not isolation, it is selective engagement. You are allowed to protect your peace without making a spectacle of it. Choosing distance is not an admission of failure. It is a recognition of reality. Some dynamics cannot be repaired because they were never built on mutual respect. The Stoic walks away not in anger, but in alignment, not loudly, but deliberately. And in that quiet withdrawal, he affirms a final truth. No one has the right to define you by a version of yourself you no longer live as. That is not abandonment. That is evolution. You are not weak for outgrowing your past, and you are not arrogant for refusing to live inside someone else's memory of you. When people keep bringing up who you used to be, it is rarely about truth. It is about control, comfort, and fear of losing access to a version of you that was easier to manage. Stoicism teaches you to see this clearly, without bitterness, without drama, and without self-betrayal. You are responsible for correcting your actions, not for endlessly paying for them. The past is a fact, but it is not a prison, unless you keep stepping back into it. When you stop defending, stop explaining, and stop reacting emotionally, the power dynamic changes. Not because you proved anything, but because you reclaimed yourself. Remember this: people who respect your growth respond to your present behavior. Those who cling to your past are revealing their own limits, not yours. The Stoic path is simple but demanding. Stand where you are today. Act with discipline. Let consistency speak for you. And when necessary, choose distance without resentment. You are not your past. You are your principles in action. If this message resonated, practice it, live it, carry it forward, not as a reaction to others, but as a commitment to your own inner freedom.